Today I want to talk about in-game tutorials coming up. Hello everybody, I'm Travis Vroman. For those of you who are new to this channel, I upload videos with tips, tricks, and industry advice for game developers. So if this sounds like something that interests you, consider subscribing. So today I want to talk about in-game tutorials and some feedback and ideas on how I think that they should be implemented, what I think works and what I think doesn't work, and what kind of materials might be good to supply with your game. So this video is actually based off of a question that was asked by Rob Lang on another video of mine, which I'll link here. And the question is, with my fledgling first game, I don't have any tutorial built in just yet. I'm nervous about giving it to my gamer friends before that's in because playing without a tutorial is going to be hard. What materials do you recommend? Written guide? YouTube video of how to play? For the first couple of runs, especially when you're testing it to see how it works, no guidance I think is best. When you're handing the game off to somebody to see how they interact with it, the best kind of feedback that you can get is gotten by handing it off to them with no tutorial, no information on how to actually play the game and see what they do. This will help you understand how intuitive the game is to play, and it will give you ideas on ways that you could make things clearer in terms of how the actual game should function. Obviously, this will be a little bit harder for them to figure out in the beginning than it will be for the live audience once the game is released, because you will obviously have some sort of materials with that to explain how to play the game. The idea of getting this feedback is to see what kind of struggles they have when they're trying to figure out how to play your game. And that will help you figure out ways that you could potentially make the game more intuitive. Now, the only exception to this is if you're trying to make a game that's intentionally hard to figure out how to actually play it. That would be the exception, but most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, you're not going to want to do that. And then after you've clarified those things, that's when you worry about adding the tutorial. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut to some in-game footage here of World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, I think, has a really good example of how to implement tutorials. So the game starts off with a narrated dialogue that tells you how the race that you selected came to be, what some of their backstory is, and why you are where you are. And I think that this kind of introduction tends to help as long as it's kept quick. I'm not a huge fan of long introductions to games. I like to sort of get in there and start playing as soon as possible. So I think that this one is right around the correct amount of time. I think it's like maybe 30 seconds or so. And so what it does is it sort of pans the camera around, kind of shows you the environment a little bit around you, and then it zooms in to where your character is standing, and it turns the controls over to you as it finishes up the narrated dialogue. So from there, it actually gives you something on the screen that says, right-click on the exclamation point to get your first quest, which gives you a clear indication of what to do. It's right there in the center of the screen. And so it's a nice, clear call to action. So when you do that, they then get rid of that previous screen that came up, and the quest screen tells you click here to accept the quest. And then it tells you to open the map by pressing M. So it's a very clear set of instructions. Tells you where your location is on the map, and that tells you to go to the blue area to find your quest objectives. And then it tells you to click and close the map. It gives you some ideas on how to move, so it gives you the WASD controls on how to move, how to pull that screen up again if you need it. And it also tells you how to select target and turn the camera. So from there, you proceed to the next area, and when you get close to an enemy, it says left click a creature to select it, and that is what allows you to actually attack the creature. So it then tells you what you need to hit next to actually cast something at it. In this case, it's a mage, so he's going to cast a frostbolt at it, or several frostbolts, until the creature actually dies. And then it comes up with another screen telling you what to do. So you need to click on the sparkling corpses to loot it. You need to right-click the item to put it in your bag, and it's all just a very clean sequence of events to actually walk you through the process of playing the game. And I think that this type of in-game tutorial is clearly the best thing that you can do, because it doesn't require that you study the game up front. It doesn't require that you have any previous knowledge about how to play that type of game, and it just puts you right into the game and kind of explains it to you as you go. And so you can experience the game all while learning it, and it tends to save time and allows you to get into the fun right away. And I think that this tends to be the best way to actually handle this. So just touching on some of the other points that he brought up, getting somebody to open a browser window or a video of how to play while they play probably isn't going to happen. In fact, it will likely kill the user experience and make them exit the application altogether. Because the idea is once somebody has your game loaded up, you want to keep them playing it. And so sending them off to some other materials that you've linked to is not going to provide that for you. And so what you want to do is keep your tutorial in-game to keep them in the application and engaged while they learn. This is a personal opinion of mine as well, but I've always believed that the tutorial should be part of the actual gameplay. It should contribute to the overall story. I'm not really a fan of games that make you go through a 10 or 15 minute tutorial only to find out that they exit that whole situation and you haven't actually contributed to the game at all. You're starting the game fresh after that. I prefer to learn as I go because I feel like if I've played a game for 10 or 15 minutes in a tutorial and then I haven't even contributed to the game, to me that's a bit of a waste of time. I feel it's much better to weave the tutorial into the game story as you progress and unlock features. That's just my 2 cents on that. All in all, the idea here is to keep your tutorials, keep all that kind of content, keep your help files, everything in-game when possible, and make it easily accessible to the user so that they don't have to leave your game to figure something out. If you do that, people will stay in your application much longer, and chances are they will actually enjoy the experience much, much more. Also, pay attention to making your tutorials and the UI objects that go with it as clean looking as possible. You don't want to have them look like an afterthought. You want to make them look similar in style to the rest of the game. You want to keep them along the same lines of design. You want to keep the similar colors and similar art style and make them animated, add some nice visual effects to it. Something to make it look a little bit more polished, because the tutorial is the very first thing that your users see when they open your application. And if your tutorial looks like crap, even if the rest of the game looks great, it may actually detract from the user experience and cause some users to say that, oh, I don't like the look and feel of this game, and quit the application. So you really might be shooting yourself in the foot if you don't take your time with your tutorials. So that's really all I've got about game tutorials and how that content should be provided. I hope this video was useful. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys later.